All right. Welcome back to the Boardroom Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kyle. With me is my co host, Matt. Tonight, we have a special guest, Coach Shane Kinnee, who's the offensive coordinator at Maumee High School in Ohio. Coach, welcome to the Boardroom.
Yeah, I'm excited. I appreciate you guys letting me come on. Big fan and follow all the stuff you guys do. So I'm ready to talk some sprint-based football tonight.
Matt, it wasn't live, was it? I hit the button and it wasn't live.
It did not
You
work,
know what?
man.
We're doing it
I
again.
was
Here
so
we go.
disappointed.
All good.
Let's
Here we
try
go,
again.
Coach. Welcome to the show. Here we go. There it is.
Waited all night for that.
Well, I talk about this all the time. It's really weird how Riverside does it. There's a preview button and a live button. Like, don't give me the preview. Just let me go live. Like, let me be an idiot on my own. So, Coach, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about sprint-based football, something really exciting to us. I know we always get a lot of questions on it. We've had Tony Holler on the show, so this is very, reminiscent of that. We're really excited about it, Coach. So here in a moment, Coach is going to share a screen. Actually, Coach, go ahead and share your screen while I go through this. If you are new to the show or you've listened to us and you're not subscribed to all of our stuff, please follow us on Twitter at Board Drill, TikTok at Board Drill. Again, don't be a TikTok guy, as Matt likes to say. And then subscribe to us on our website, which is www.boarddrill.com, to get our articles and our podcast right to your inbox. Matt, I didn't mean don't be on TikTok, but you don't like us to call anyone a TikTok guy, so that's why I said
I don't
that.
think anybody's trying to be a TikTok guy.
I'll be a TikTok guy. It's all right. So, all
sure
right,
you
Coach, take it away. We're done being idiots.
Yep, all good. So kind of like I was talking to you guys before, just a little bit about, a sprint-based football. And again, this is just the definition, that kind of we came up with. And like this is something that, for us was something that, so I'm the offensive coordinator at Maumee High School, right? And I work for a really good head coach in Evan Karshner, right? And we were at Evergreen, what was that, 2022. Um, and we were just looking for different answers, right? And we were looking for, why do our guys keep getting hurt? Why are we not winning? Just stuff like that. Why don't we have as many, players in our program as everyone else? And this was something that kind of, and I'll get more into that and the answers we found and stuff like that. But that was kind of, our intro into finding this. And it really was Coach Karshner, right? He went to the Chicago sprint-based clinic in 2023 before the year, or excuse me, the offseason going into our first season at Maumee High School. Right. And that's with Tony Holler, Brad Dixon, Garrett Mueller, all those guys that do that every single year. That was kind of our intro to it. And really from sprint-based football is not just about, I think you hear sprint-based, you think it's about, it has a track background, but it's not just about, sprinting and that stuff, right? I mean, it's a training philosophy, right? That it's going to emphasize speed. But it's so much more, and it's about taking care of your guys. And it's really a backwards way of looking at it. Old school football, right? I think old school football, right? It's 2 days every single day. You're trying to get the most out of every single practice. You have long practices, right? It's long workouts. You come in, you do, your 3 core lifts, and then you're done. But for us, right, with sprint-based football, it's a little different than that. We're constantly trying to figure out, how can we do, and it's really a balance, right? How can we give or have the least amount of load on our players, but then also be able to have them ready for the game and everything that they're going to. So again, we're always valuing recovery, right, and peak performance. Okay, so again, kind of like I talked about this. So we were at Evergreen High School, right? We were 3-7. We sat down and we asked ourselves, why did we lose? We said it came down to these 3 factors, right? Programs have better players than we do, right? Whether that's speed, strength, football skills, right? And then injuries was the one that really sent us looking into this, right? We lost our starting quarterback really 2 years in a row, exactly on week 3. We were missing key starters for at least 30% of the season, right? Many were soft tissue injuries. Now, that's the big one that I saw that we were able to cut down. And the reason why we went towards sprint-based football, obviously with football, you are going to have injuries regardless, right? Like broken bones, stuff like that. Sprint-based football is not going to fix that. But just cutting down on the soft tissue injuries and how your guys feel, that's a big part. And then opponents have more players in their program. We're a Division III program. We have roughly 600 kids in our school. So that's kind of, for us, our roster will look anywhere between 40 to 50 guys on varsity. And then with freshmen included, we're probably around 70. But again, just with more players in their program, right? Kids quit. We're gonna make football fun, right? And I think that's the reason that kids originally love football and want to play football. It's fun, and it still needs to be that way at least at the high school level, right? Kids not coming out for football will have guys walking the hallways that look different. That just aren't coming out for football, and then low off season and summer attendance. So those are the three factors, that we keyed in on is how do we change this? And this is, what led us to sprint-based football. Just the pillars.
Go back, Coach. Go back.
Yeah.
So I like a couple things you have on here, Coach, and I'm in full agreement, right? You're not going to stop the freak injuries.
Mm-hmm.
That's just football, right? Somebody tears their ACL, they do whatever.
Yeah.
But the soft tissue injuries went way down for you guys. I know when we did something similar, it went way down for us. And the key is, right, we didn't have guys with nagging injuries all year long, my hamstring or my calf or this is that. And I think that was huge for our program. And then the second thing that resonated with me was making football fun.
Mm-hmm.
And, to some of those old school guys, right, they're going to be like, well, not supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be work and all that. But you can have fun and still work. I think that's a big thing when you're not at a school that has 90, 120 kids in the program. Me and Matt were lucky enough to be at a big school, 8A school here in Florida. So, I mean, Matt, how many kids did we have at Oviedo?
We kept around between all three levels around 120 to 140.
Yeah, and then after that, I went to Oakleaf. That also was an 8A program. We had 100-something kids in the program. But for you have 600 kids in the school, right?
Yeah.
We had more than 600 in a graduating class. But I think the idea of keeping it fun, and because it's fun, right, you're getting those bodies that walk the hallways that maybe you didn't. And you're not – you notice how if you're listening and you're one of those people like, oh, fun, you notice that Coach didn't say we're making things easy. He just said we're making things fun. And I think that's a really key thing. When you make them fun, you're going to get those kids that A, probably quit, or B, are walking around the hallway and look gorgeous, right? And they just want to play basketball in the AC, but you got to get those kids out. So it's a depth thing and also an athlete thing. You can get both now because you made practice fun. So
yeah, and I'm never gonna criticize people who make football tough, because I do think there are some programs, there are some schools, especially around us. Like we're around a school called Liberty Center that competes for a state championship every single year, and they don't do sprint-based football, and they don't believe in it, and they still win. Right? You got to do whatever works for your program and your community. Right? This is what we found has worked for us, and not even just making football fun for like the kids. It's fun for the coaches. Like that's the big thing, is we have a staff and we all like being there, right? And we all like competing. So again, whatever works for your program, right? We just know that we need every single player we can get, right? And we have so many two-way guys. Like I think on both sides of the ball last year, I think we had at least 7 that played both ways.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So, we're constantly trying to find ways to keep them fresh, right? To get other guys to get breaks. Football becomes a long, even if at least in Ohio, right, it's 10 games plus the playoffs, right? That becomes a long season once you get to week 6 and week 7. So we're just trying to constantly find ways, to make our guys feel rested and recovered. So just for football, right, the kind of the pillars that we always stick with sprint-based football, right? Make football the best part of the day. We kind of just hit on that. Players, coaches, right, and make players excited to come and wanting more, right? I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing for in the summer to practice 5 days a week, and then the kids only get a 2-day weekend. We try to do 4 days max in the summer in a week, and then they're going to get a long weekend every single weekend, right? Let the kids be kids. We're going to post graphics. We're going to be heavy on social media, right? We have a miles per hour club for our guys who sprint. We have a pound club for our guys who, I think it's 1,000 and above, right? And then we have snacks, Iron Panther, and then we have a champions dinner for our guys who meet a certain, participation percentage for the summer and don't miss much. We're going to value speed over everything, right? Speed is the tide that lifts all boats, right? We want football players and not power lifters. And then rest and recovery. So we call it, and again, it's not something that we came up with. I believe it might be Brad Dixon or it's Tony Holler, one of them, right? Where they do, their feed the, for us, right? We're the Maumee Panthers. Ours is feed the Panthers.
Yeah.
Right. And we want them to have healthy athletes, right? Is a happy one. right? And then the healthier team, especially as you get later on in the season, the playoffs, right? I mean, those are the ones that normally win, right? The guys that have the least amount of guys, in street clothes on the sidelines. Okay, for us, so the first part of Feed the Panthers, right? How do we make football fun? And I picked these two pictures because we're trying to recreate. Like, I like celebrations, right? When we score, I like when we do good stuff, and want us to make football fun, right? And whether you like it or not, kids are on TikTok. Kids like celebrations. They like to find, the guy who's shooting, the pictures right in the end zone, and it just is what it is with kids that we're coaching now. So however we're able to do that and make football fun, right? I want to create as many these type of pictures as we can. One, it means we're having fun. Two, it means we're likely doing some good things on the field and we're winning. Because I know me personally, right? I like to win. I think that's the most fun, right? But trying to find a balance between, us winning and having fun with the players is always what we're trying to do. Okay, and then Feed the Panthers. So we're going to record and publish. So for us, and I think if you really want to invest in being a, sprint-based football team, I think it's really hard to do if you're not tracking your players. For us, right? I know some people use Catapult. We use Titan Sports. It's a little bit cheaper, and there's some other high schools I know that use them, but it tracks all of our players, right? How much they run during a practice, how heavy their load is based on their height and weight, and then how much, and really we call it like how much impact is their body taking throughout a game. So it's going to record and it's going to let us know in the data once practice is done. They wear these little GPS chips on their body. It's going to let us know all that information. And Titan also does a really good job of, right, they'll post it on social media, right? So top speed miles per hour. This was in our region, the Midwest. We had 2 guys in 1 week, right, reached the top 10, right? Eli Dotson was at 19 miles per hour during the game, right? And then Will Kubik's was 18 miles per hour game. And kids like to see that. And then the same week, right, we had an explosive touchdown for 83 yards. And again, it has a video of that, and it also shows, right here, just all the data for that.
So, Coach, I've always wondered
Yeah.
this because, back when I worked in college, saw a lot of Catapult. Don't know any idea how to use it. Titan. If I'm a high school coach and I got Titan, is it easy to use? Is it tough? And I'm not asking you to be an expert here. Maybe you're not the Titan guy
so
there, but
our head coach will mainly handle that. I've gotten to use it a little bit. It's not as complicated, and that's why I like Titan a little bit more than Catapult, because Titan is much more simple than Catapult is. It's less stuff, and it's kind of how you make it. Like, we're only tracking a few things that we're really concerned of. We're not necessarily taking that data and trying to do other stuff with it, like a strength conditioning coordinator or like a college program would do. But it's very simple. Each one of so there's a subscription you pay for, and then each one of those GPSs, right, are a few $100s. So I think we started off this past season was when we first started using Titans, and we had 15 of them. Now we're up to 20, and for a school of our size, 20 is probably about where we'll keep it. Just because on a Friday night you're not playing any more than 20 guys typically. That we really want to keep track of and know, how big is how much, or how much is their effort and load that they're doing. So for us, this is on social media. So this was our game, our first week against Springfield.
So
and again,
cool.
This is just a graphic that they'll post, and it has you can see down here below, it has our guys that have chips on, even the guys on the sideline, right? And then it's going to track, again, how fast they go. And this is stuff that kids like, and they post on their Instagram, right? And they get excited about it. You're going to see we're running a stubby beater here, just with the post inside, and Carson Grates ends up taking it, for a 40-yard touchdown here. And it's going to tell you got up to 18 miles per hour. So that's always cool for us, and it's always cool to see the guys sprinting down there, to go celebrate.
It'd be fun one game. I'm going to throw this out there. If you have a really active coach, to GPS him and watch him run up and down the sideline, see how much he runs.
No, that would be our head coach. He paces and he moves a lot during the sideline. That would be funny to see that for sure. But again, this is the stuff that kids like, right? So same thing here. Okay, we're just running a gap scheme RPO here, glance, and we end up taking it for a touchdown. But again, kids like that, right? And it's exciting for them, and it keeps football fun.
I love how Coach just glosses over here. If you're listening in the car, he glosses over that they're running over the shoulder glance from the opposite mesh, which is a hell of a read for a high school quarterback.
Yeah.
And then we could get into RPOs. That's kind of something that we do, but that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, we'll do RPOs both ways. Just kind of how we do it. But again, I mean, this is stuff that I like. Like I like seeing our receiver on the backside go chase his friend out to the end zone. But again, this is stuff that we do try to make football fun. Same thing here. So we'll actually post graphics on our social media, right? And again, this is just what our guys will sprint in the off season. Every Thursday we'll record them, right? And then we'll post them either Friday or Monday, just what their numbers are. Right here, we'll do our fly 10 graphic. Here's our 40s, and then right in the season, we got different things: offensive, defensive player, special teams player, linemen, and then hard hat. Hard hat for us is typically a guy who did really good that week on scout team.
So, Coach, sorry, go back. I know I keep making you go back. You're an offensive guy. You're so fast. Let me guess. You guys run a little bit of tempo too, Coach?
So
because you talk like you run tempo, you know.
Yeah. No. We're not in a tempo. We're not a tempo team. Surprisingly, I work for a defensive head coach.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. So those guys, don't necessarily love tempo. It's something we've dabbled with in the past. No, it's just not something we do, especially when we have guys that gotta play both ways.
Yeah, that's a good point.
With tempo. Yeah.
Matt, am I the only defensive guy that likes tempo? I think that'd be a requirement if I was head coach for us to play with tempo.
Yeah, I think you are.
Anyways, sorry, I gotta get this. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Coach. Is this just for like off-season time stuff you're showing now?
Yeah, so we
Not
will
in-game,
do,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll record. This stuff, the recording, our graphic. Yeah, this is off-season stuff. But then this one right here would be like our game of the week, our guys of the week.
So we'll this is 3 different graphics. Is what you're showing. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what do you, just for the coaches out there, I have a graphic design background, so I understand this, but let's talk about this real quick because it's easier than coaches think. What do you guys design on?
So I'm gonna be, I don't know the exact program. I don't make the designs. I don't make the graphics. I just always retweet them.
No, that's fair. So
yeah, I know the program we use, right? It's like it's a monthly subscrition.
Is it Canva?
It might be Canva.
Okay,
I can't remember the exact what one it's called, but I mean, I've seen our coaches use it and it's super easy, right? They have a bunch of different, and I know there's a few high schools around us that also use it as well. And I think our athletic department pays for it as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it could be one of the service ones, but look, if you're a coach out there and you think I can't do this, there's templates on Canva, there's services that you can purchase, but also, honestly, there's free templates on Canva if you want to take some time and build some out for the year, and you just build 2 or 3 templates and use them over and over. So if you're a guy out there who thinks this is cool, which, by the way, it is, it's good to pump your program like this, and the kids love it. Take some time and do that stuff. If you don't know how to do it, find someone who does. Heck, call me. I'll help you out. But these are an important piece, and not because I think like it's a show off and look at me thing. I think it's celebrating success, right? It's not about looking fancy or doing anything, right, Coach? But celebrating the small success with your players that keeps them encouraged year round. Kids are motivated different now, right? They need these little things to help them move along. So I love the fact that you guys are doing this, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a little bit more effort. And I know some of the old school coaches, like there's a team right in our league that calls us like the Twitter school, right? Because we post so many graphics and stuff like that. But again, we're just more concerned with, how do we make things fun for our guys? And then again, this is just another way for us. Right, we'll have a miles per hour club. Right?
I love this.
So all of our kids, this is in Coach Karcher's classroom, right? So there's a 23, 22, 21, and 20. If they hit that mile per hour, they'll get little graphics of little speed tags that they can hook onto their book bag. And almost all of our kids wear them around school. And then they'll get to sign one of these, and it's literally just like a speed sign. We have up here, right here, it says fastest Panthers. So again, we have a few different guys on different ones, but kids like that, right? And then our Iron Panther. So our Iron Panther is just all of our kids who I think you can miss one. I believe it's one. You can miss one day in the summer and still be an Iron Panther. But again, it's just another way they'll get a shirt, and then they'll go to our champions dinner that we have at the end of the summer, which is just a steak dinner that they'll get they'll get to come eat for free and hang out. Just another way to try to get kids to show up. Okay, and then this is just kind of a video of us. So this is our hallway here. This is our sprint mat, and then we have right here our free lap systems on. And then we do this enough that we start to mark on the walls like where the 30-yard line is, where we should start it, where the 40 is. It just makes it easier for us to be able to set up. But you'll see us sprinting here, right? And we'll do this in the off season, right, once a week, and then we'll sprint in season twice a week. Everything on the free lap system, right? So it's a laser time. The kids are wearing a chip on their side, and that time, right, the fly 10 and 40 will go right to coach's phone. Okay, same thing here. Okay, and then we'll have, right, same thing. So we're going to feed them. And this is a simple way that if you have a really supportive community, right, boosters, alumni, this is, an easy way, right, to continue to make our players happy. Like for this picture right here, right, we had a food truck come in after one of our practices. I think it was Thursday night before the game, right, and all of our kids got a free meal. Okay, then here, so this is also a Coach Karcher's room, right? They'll have snacks. This whole cupboard up here is filled with all kinds of different snacks that get donated, right? This is a peanut butter and jelly station right here. And then again, you can see our kids posing for the camera. And then we'll also do, so we don't bring our kids in, and I'll talk more about how it works in our weekly in-season, our schedule, but we don't bring our kids in for film unless we have a home JV game. We want those guys to rest and recover and then support their JV teammates. But again, this is just another way they'll have food, whether it's donuts, whether it's pizza. We always got something for them that they can come in, right, as a reward for coming in, and then they're going to get a chance to eat. So this is like all the stuff that we implemented, right, and with sprint-based football in order for us to see the changes. So again, like I mentioned, 2022 season, we were at evergreen 3-7 record. We were no feed the cats, right? We weren't sprint-based football. We had 6 kids with injuries that resulted in 3+ missed games. They were all soft tissue, right? We got worse throughout the season. And I remember this season, right, not only because, right, a 3-7 record is not easy. It's not fun to coach that. But just, mentally and physically, our players were drained, right? We were slow, tired, poor attitudes, no motivation. It was like we were just trying to get the season done. We had 5 kids quit throughout the season. Okay. And then we transitioned to the 2023 season, right? Our first year here at Maumee, we finished 5-5, right? We were no feed the cats. We knew what it was. We weren't necessarily invested in it. We still had 4 kids with injuries that resulted in 3+ missed games, right? Again, soft tissues. We got worse throughout the season, slow, tired. And then there we had 3 kids quit throughout the season. And then 2023 was our first year at Maumee was a little different because we inherited a program, right, that was 1-38 before we got there. So our main focus wasn't necessarily about sprint-based football. It was more about how do we transition this into wins and get more kids out. But again, once we went 5-5, we were able to start to look into different stuff. And then 2024 season, this past season, right, we were 8-3, right? We were probably 75% into sprint-based football. This upcoming season, we're 100% bought in. We had 2 kids with injuries that resulted in 3+ missed games, right? Soft tissue, going down from 6 compared to 2 on a team that relies on 7 to 8 guys that play both ways. Our best player, right? This was the first time in his career, right, that he played in 11 games both ways. So this was a kid that's a Division II player on his way to Northwood University. But he had never finished a season without a season-ending injury. So we did sprint-based football, right? And this was his first season finishing. Okay, he was a 1,000-yard rusher, right? 20 touchdowns, 110 tackles. And then, we just got better throughout the season, right? We started to wear GPS and track our top players, right? We were faster and more explosive, right? And then, like, our best player ran his fastest mile per hour in a game, week 10, right? In a game that was really important to our guys. We were energized, ready to roll, and then we only had 1 kid quit throughout the season. And again, I think some of the numbers on kids quitting is so it's always going to vary because you always are going to have kids who come out for football that aren't necessarily football players, right? And football is not an easy sport to play. But again, just for us to see those numbers continue to go down as the more invested we got in sprint-based football is a big deal for us.
Yeah, Coach, I go back to the biggest point on this is your best player ran his fastest mile per hour in week 10. I mean, that's a big deal because we all know what it's like to go through a season. You know, a lot of us played and then we've coached for a number of years. I mean, by week 10, you don't feel great. Like it just is what it is. You know, hell, I don't feel great as a coach by week 10. I can't imagine being a player again, but that's a pretty big deal to hit your fastest mile per hour in week 10. That means you're peaking at the right time. So I think that's a huge stat right there to go off of.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff we did later on in the presentation about how we were able to get him, through the season without an injury. But this is the play right here. Okay, week 10. Okay, this was right before halftime. It was 14-10. Defense here is running 3 high. We just ran a screen play, and you're going to see. Obviously, it's nice to have a running back that's able to make a defender miss, but right here at the end, so he has a kid that right here has an angle on him. It's probably 100 pounds less than him, chasing him down. Right, he'll be able to pull away. And that was a big deal at that point, right? You can see there's 17 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, that's huge.
A big deal for us, and especially for him to see, himself be able to sprint away from guys. I mean, everyone fired up, and again, it's all about, right, once we score and we're doing good, right, get in the end zone, have some fun. Okay, so this is going to focus. So I kind of talked about what sprint-based football is, and in very broad terms. So now we're going to talk about how we implement that into our season, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll have sprint and non-sprint days. And I think the biggest thing you have to hit, especially if you're doing this year one with your players, that a non-sprint day does not mean we do not sprint during practice. Like that was the first thing that we really had to change, and we were still coaching that with our players. That a non-sprint day doesn't mean we don't sprint. The coaches are going to control how much you sprint in individual drills and how much you sprint with your reps during group time, and then ultimately in team time. So that was the biggest thing there. What was changing that? And again, the ultimate goal is to balance our guys being rested and recovered for Friday, but being prepared mentally and physically to play a game, right? We want them trending up. So the first time, right, we're going into the season, right, after they play a game, right, they're at their lowest point that they're ever going to be, right? They played a game. That should be the hardest part of the week. They're mentally, physically drained. So then they're going to take Saturday, Sunday off. So they're going to start trending back up, right? Then we're going to hit Monday, right? Monday is going to be a sprint day, so we're going to go back down a little bit. Tuesday is going to be a non-sprint day, so we're going to start to go up a little bit. And then once we get to Wednesday, right, that's also a sprint day. That's going to be your hardest day. You're going to be back down. Thursday's a rest day. So we want to be towards the top as we get to Friday. That's kind of our goal is how we look at it from just a broad perspective as coaches.
Coach, talk about the non-sprint days. I know you say, obviously, because I'm curious on this, you said, we still sprint, but it's up to the coach to limit it. Is there like a set limit? Is it a feel thing? What do you guys do as far as that?
So how we do it is a lot of that's going to be determined with your coordinator and what he's going to choose to do. So our indie drills should be not a lot of running. It should be, I don't want to say teaching, but it should be a lot of technique, stuff like that. A lot of stuff that we're not necessarily sprinting or moving a ton from point A to point B. And then when you get into group drills, like we're obviously not going to do a pursuit, or if you're a defense guy, you're not going to do a pursuit drill. You're probably not going to do skelly. You're going to limit how many team reps you have. Like you might normally do 10 plays a team. Well, during a non-sprint day, you might do 7 or 8, and you might really rotate your guys in. And you're just trying to control how much they're sprinting and not sprinting. So like something that really helps is when we got the Titans, we didn't realize that a 5-minute pursuit drill for defense is actually going to be more taxing on their bodies than a 15-minute team period.
Yeah.
So having that stuff is a huge deal, being able to, because you just don't know until you look at the data, right? You think something's not very taxing on them, and they might tell you it's taxing on them. You might just think they're being soft, but the data is saying, hey, this is a lot on their body, right? And I'll get a little bit more into that as we continue. Okay, so just from a weekly weekly perspective, Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? Players are going to lift in their strength class during school. I know a lot of schools don't have that luxury, and I understand that. If we didn't have that ability, we would probably just lift before we do a quick lift before on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? Just so we're still lifting in season. Okay, we're going to do time sprints twice a week with the runway and the hallway, right? A free lap laser system. Okay, and we always do that before film, right? And if you start to go to those sprint-based clinics in Chicago, they're going to tell you, right, that you want to do some of this stuff before you do any type of film, teaching, walkthrough, whatever you do, because you're trying to wake the body up and get them ready to receive information. Okay, we're going to do 40s and fly 10s. That's just what we do when we sprint. Okay, every day we're going to warm up with sprinting drills. We're always working speed. Okay, so Tuesday is going to be a heavy lift, muscle building day. It's going to be core muscles, single leg arm work, jumping, hamstrings, right, on top of any of our core lifts, right? It's going to be heavier percentages of core lifts and medium to high reps. Thursday's what we look at as a prime day, right? Because we're playing Friday. So it's going to be explosive stuff. We're looking for low weight bands, medicine balls, low to medium reps, but we're doing everything fast. Okay, and then Monday, Wednesday, okay, we're going to work in-game movements, change direction, collision training during practice, right? Those are more of heavy film days for us because we're not sprinting in the hallway. Okay, and then our philosophy with practice. Okay, so we're never going to condition. I personally think it's a time waster. Kids hate it. And then the biggest thing, if you're going to be a sprint-based team, is it's teaching bad running habits, right? When kids after that first, suicide, for that first whatever you call it, right? They're starting to preserve their body. They're not running full speed. They're trying to figure out, how do I survive this and get through it? We're no longer working good running techniques. And I would say, right, we don't condition, but we'll do more team stuff. We'll do a 10-minute period of NASCAR. We're trying to go up and down the field, as fast as we can. So we're trying to do stuff, right, that is football, but doesn't necessarily, we're not calling it conditioning, and it's not necessarily conditioning because we're not running. We're just trying to do it in a football, perspective. Something that, we're strict on, and I know I listened to Chip Kelly talk about this when he was at UCLA, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, right? We're trying to stay under 2 hours of on-field time, and you got to be strict with no reruns, right? So we're lucky enough that we have a drone that films all of our practice, all of our group, all of our team stuff. So we're trying our best, unless it's a really big problem, to do no reruns, right? We're trying to get it. We're going to teach it on film, right? We're going to be strict with our time because we're not going over 2 hours of on-field time. Okay, we don't not go over, and especially on the non-sprint day, right? We're trying to stay strict to that. And again, it's hard. That was the hardest thing for me, right? Is one guy messes up during team, you're like, we got to rerun it. It didn't look good enough, right? But as you get used to it, right? And then our head coach is really good with me, right? Just get it on film, right? We're lucky enough to be able to film practice. So let's get it on film and teach them, right? When we're able to be in a better environment too. Okay. Something that helped us. So every one of our scripts has a player rep count on it. So like if it's inside run, right, Cody might take the first 4, and then Keyshawn's going to take the next 3, and then the next 3 are going to be, Travis, however you do that. And it doesn't seem like a big deal. And I know most coaches are be like, hey, let's make sure this period we get Timmy in for this many amount of reps. But what ends up happening is you get locked in, you end up forgetting. This way it ensures that even if we need to get a kid in that we want to get in, it also ensures us that we're able to rest guys that we need to rest. Like if our 3-year varsity starter, right, had a huge game, he carried it 20 times, right? That Monday practice, he's probably not going to do many group or if any team reps. We're trying to rest him. And then we're always going to track the GPS data, right? Things can be more pulling to their bodies than we think, right? And is it okay to rest a guy? And I kind of talked a little bit about that, right? If your guy, who does a lot for you, whether he's a running back, quarterback, and again, I understand it's a little bit backwards thinking of old school football, but like if his body needs it, don't practice him on Monday. Don't practice him on Tuesday because we want them ready for Friday, right? Friday is the biggest thing. We want them feeling 100 or as close to 100% as they possibly can, right? And then something that helped us is we were a veteran team last year, right? So a lot of those guys didn't need as many reps. It really helps your younger guys, right? If you're able to get those guys reps while you're also resting, right? And not beating your starters or your veteran players into the ground. Okay, practice planning, right? So we're a smaller school. We have a lot of two-way players. We have to split practice into offense and defense. So for how that ends up shaping up with special teams, it's about 50 minutes for offense and defense, right? And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right, are all going to be a split practice, right? So it's not just offense gets one or defense gets one. It's always going to be a split practice. So Monday and Wednesday are going to be sprint days, right? It's a lot of doing and it's less teaching. We're trying to get multiple team reps, high reps. We're trying to do our Skelly period, our ROA, our deep choice pods, our RPO circuit, our NASCAR period, our perimeter blocking, right? Our best on best, whatever is a lot of taxing stuff out on Monday and Wednesday because those are our sprint days. Tuesdays and Thursdays, right, are non-sprint days, so it's going to be less doing, a lot of teaching, right? We might only have one team period. It's going to be less reps. This is a really good time to do walkthrough. It's a really good time to do inside run, right? Blitz pickup, pass pro, our ball security circuit, right? And again, more indie time. That's kind of how we're thinking with non-sprint days and sprint days.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yep. So then Saturday for us, we do not wake players up early. We don't watch film with them. So many times you get in there, right? They're tired. They don't really want to be there, whether we like it or not. And it's just a waste of time, right? To get them to be able to be locked in for that long it's a TikTok generation, and then that's hard to do. So we're going to prioritize sleep and recovery. The only time they're going to come in for us, and again, this may not work for your program, but this is what works for us, is we have a home JV game. They're going to come out and they're going to support their guys, and they're going to leave at halftime. And again, 90% of those guys are going to go home and they're going to take a nap. That's just how
Coach, real quick, I'm not familiar with Ohio. Do you guys play JV on like Saturday or something?
So we do play our JV games on Saturday at 10 a.m.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so down here in Florida and a lot of places in the South, they play them on Thursday night. So that's why I was a little confused. I was like, what does he mean JV game?
Yeah, so Thursdays for us is our middle school, and then our JV, and then Mondays are our freshmen. It's just at least how our league works. I know everyone's a little different.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so they're gonna come in at 9:30. We'll always have food, whether that's Tim Hortons, whether that's a parent meal, something, right? They're gonna see the trainer if they need to, right? And then coaches without JV responsibilities will come in at 7 to 7:30, right? We're gonna do laundry. We're gonna watch Friday's game together. It's normally the coordinators and the head coach, right? We're gonna make a cut up of the good, bad, and ugly from the game, and we're gonna grade it. And then at 9:30, we're going to talk to our varsity guys. We're going to head out to the JV game. And then after JV game, okay, as coaches, we're going to start watching, the opponent, do the huddle exchange, whatever you got to do, send it to Huddle Assist to get that, process started. Okay, Sunday, rest day for the players, not necessarily for the coaches, right? Church, family time. They're going to hang out with friends. We're going to have our staff meeting at 4, right? And really, we're just going to finalize the game plan. Our head coach is also our defensive play caller, right? And then I've been with him for now 4 years, so there's not really that much to talk about. We're kind of typically always on the same page. It's more of just to brief him about the defense and hey, what we're thinking on offense this week. Okay, right. Obviously, coaches, we're going to get practice plans, scout cards, scripts ready for Monday, and then throughout the week, we're going to start making the cut-ups of your certain situations, right, that you're going to find yourself in. Okay, Monday, right? So again, Monday's a sprint day. We're going to sprint in the hallway before practice. Okay, and then we're going to watch 15 minutes of that past game, right? The good, bad, ugly film from the last game. We're going to show the players the new install, the film for this week's opponent, right? And then this is just the emphasis on offense for us, right, on a sprint day. It's going to be our top base runs versus their fronts, our top base passes versus their coverages, our top base RPOs versus the defensive structure, right? It'll be whatever we're installing, and then our openers that we like for that week. And this is kind of how our practice plan works. Now, the hardest thing for us, right, is doing a walkthrough right here on Monday, because technically that's supposed to be a sprint day. But this is something that we've had to adjust, and we just have to do it that way, right? Because we're trying to get the install in. You'd rather have it on Monday than have a sprint day on Thursday, right? Because that's kind of what you're choosing between. So we do a walkthrough then, okay, on Monday. And again, it is truly like a slow down pace out on the field, right? We're going to do 10 minutes of indie. We're going to do 15 minutes of group, 20 minutes of group, and then we're going to do a team period, right? 12 plays, right? Skelly 8 plays, inside run 9 plays. That's kind of how we do it. And then this is kind of what I was talking about. So this is going to be our script for each one of the groups, group period and team period. And right here, right, we'll have our personnel, and it has all the numbers, right? So Cody's going to take 4, Key's going to take 3, Cohen's going to take 1, Bryson's going to take 1, right? And again, I like this because one, it keeps the position coaches and the players locked in at all times, right? So we say hypothetically we rerun a play. Well, Keyshawn might be like, hey, did that count as his player, or could I go steal his rep? Right? You're trying to get kids to be more locked in and focused on what's going on, right? And you're also building up your young guys by being able to say, hey, you're going to get 1 rep at the end of scale. You're going to get 1 rep at the end of inside run. So that's kind of what we do with our scripts. Okay, and then Tuesday, right? So again, another non-sprint day. Okay, so players are going to lift in their strength class, right? This will be the heaviest lift day of the week, right? It's going to be core lifts. It's going to be medium to high reps. Okay, there's no sprinting in the hallway. We're going to have longer film time, right, as we give their bodies a break. It's going to be a big mental day. We're teaching off Monday's film. Okay, on-field activities, a lot of technique work. And then just for the offensive guys, what we do, right, we're finalizing whatever our install is. I don't like to install anything past Tuesday. I want to have 2, almost 3 full practices of us running something before I'm able to call it on a Friday. And then second down, we're going to start to break that down. It's going to be long and medium periods. And then we're going to introduce any special looks that we do that the opponent is going to do, right? Whether that's a blitz, stunt, coverage, late rotation, whatever that is. Okay, so this is just some of the stuff that these guys are going to be doing, okay, in their strength class, right? So again, we'll do our core lifts, but that's not necessarily a big part of it, right? So this is just our deadlift, jumps, okay, that they'll do in the aux gym across the hallway from our weight room, right? Again, we're focused on being explosive, okay, and driving our heels off the ground, okay, right? Bar holds, right? We tell them we're really trying to move the rack as we push up. And again, it's not necessarily all about high weights. Okay, a lot of our stuff, right, is single arm work, single leg work, trying to really work different type of hamstring muscles and all that. Okay, right, here's an ISO lift for us, right? We're just working, the chest and the arms. Okay, so again, that's how we do that. That's kind of some of the lifts that you'll see that we'll do. Okay, so this will be Tuesday, right? So Tuesday's a non-sprint day, so we'll always do some type of ball security circuit, right? That's a really light thing that's important to us, right? We pride ourselves on, this season we didn't have a fumble. So again, we pride ourselves on ball security, right? We're gonna have our install, we're gonna finalize whatever that is, right, up here for 5 minutes. Right, and again, you're going to see ROA walkthrough, right? And again, it's non-sprint day. We're just going to walk through whatever new was installed or whatever we're working on one of our base concepts against maybe some of their structure that we don't see a lot. Okay, the 60 pass pro is going to be our pass protection, right? So again, I'm saying walkthrough, but it's really light stuff. I mean, it's not full speed, but it's not necessarily, it's kind of in between. So we're going to do 60 pass pro, right, against their different protection, against their different fronts. Okay, blitz pickup, stuff like that. So we're just trying to do stuff that's really light on the body, and then you're going to see for us non-sprint day, we're only going to have one team period here. Same thing. I'm not going to go over this again. This is just what our script would look like for that day. Okay, and Wednesday we're back to a sprint day. Right, players are going to sprint in the hallway. Right, this is typically the hardest day, for the players according to our data, and I say that because on Monday, which is our other sprint day, there's some type of recovery process still in the works from Friday. So this is why Wednesday we're going to try to really go hard, burn them out, right? So that they're starting to trend up, right? They're going to take that dip and then they're going to have Thursday off and they're going to start to trend back up. Okay. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of sprinting, right? We're finishing. It's something that we do that's a little different, right? And I believe that, whatever you work on, right, you got to work on in practice. So like for us, we might have a random team period where our running back takes, our power scheme and rips off 60 yards and he's working on sprinting, right, with the football and he's going to go score a touchdown, right? And it doesn't really affect us because we just get the next running back in, right? But he's still working on, right, good sprint technique, right? And then actually, running in, we're always trying to create explosive plays on offense. And then the emphasis for us on offense, right, during our Wednesday is going to be third down, medium to long. We're going to start getting to our red zone stuff and our short yardage. Okay, so again here, NASCAR is just what everyone does, right? We're running through just plays up and down the field, right? The ones are going to take 6 plays, the twos are going to take 5. We're going to have an Indy period. Okay, a group period of we're working our RPO circuit. Okay, Skelly, which is going to be very taxing on the players' bodies, but we're going to do 12 plays of those, trying to burn them out. Okay, we're going to do team short yardage, 7 plays, team red zone, 8 plays, and then we're doing team 15. As you can see, compared to the non-sprint days, those are a lot more higher reps. Okay, and then this will be our script. Okay, Thursday's a non-sprint day, right? So this is going to be the easiest day of the week for our players. Okay, they're going to lift in the strength class, but it's a prime type of lift, right? We're doing low weight bands, low medium reps, right? We're focused on explosive movements, right? It's not going to be very taxing. Okay, this is a big mental day, so like we're not, because we play on Friday, right? We're not sprinting on Thursday, but we're also going to have a longer film meeting because of that, right? Trying to make sure everything's locked in, everyone knows what the checks are, what we're doing what we're doing for on Friday. Okay. And then key players, and this is something we got a little bit more into, right? Like if your best player is an experienced player, or maybe your guy is a guy that doesn't need a lot of reps, he might do only 5 plays on Thursday. So each offense and defense only has 15 plays on a non-sprint day. That's all we do. We're trying to get ready for our game. That's all they're going to do. So they might only take 5 plays, and you might say, hey, let's get the young guys some reps. We're trying to save their legs. Okay. And then on offense, it's going to be, our emphasis is going to be what are our openers and starters we want on Friday. And then I want to see anything new we installed, that week, probably, 1 or 2 more times, just so I feel comfortable calling it. Okay. And then again, this is some of the stuff they're going to do Thursday, right? That's going to prime their body up. So this is banded high knees, trying to be explosive, going through the ground. Yeah, these are tantrums, right? Working our hamstrings. Okay, on med ball throws. Variations and workouts, right, that your guys can do, right? They'll simulate some of this stuff. This is on med ball jumps. Okay, we have our skater jumps. Get ready for Friday. Okay, and then we have our depth jumps. And again, if you're interested in some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff it gets talked about at the Chicago, sprint-based clinic. Right? They talk about a lot of this stuff. Okay, and something we've got more into this off season is collision prep. Right, these are tucked rolls, getting our body ready for contact. So when we walk out there, June or July, right, it's not the first time that we're gonna make contact with someone else. So this is what our script looks like for Thursday. Okay, and it's not that, I know it says we go all the way till 5:30, but we're probably off the field by 4:55. This is just how we had it for the first year. Special team script is every single situation, offense, defense, and special teams that they're going to go through, just to make sure we have the right guys running out, right, for punt return, whatever that is, right. And then you're going to see offense only gets 15 plays, defense gets 15 plays, and then the end is always a JV walkthrough, just because those guys get neglected throughout the week, just because there's only so many reps that we can do, trying to get our guys ready for Fridays. Okay, and then Friday, is obviously game day. It's the hardest day of the week, right? We don't believe that practice up until then should be the hardest day of the week. A game should be easy for our guys. I don't believe in that. Okay, we will sprint. We're going to do RPR and other stimulus drills before the game. We'll actually do that in the gym. So this is our schedule right here. Okay, so 5 o'clock, the team's actually going to report if they need any taping, dress. Okay, and then 5:30, we're going to go in the gym for a warm-up circuit. Each circuit goes in the corner of the gym. Okay, we're going to have different stuff they're doing. One of the circuits is going to be a sprint drill. One's going to be an RPR. One's going to be a stimulus ball and foam mats. Again, another big sprint-based football thing is they're little balls and they're a little spiky and they roll them all across their body.
Yeah.
You see some NFL players doing it. You're just trying to wake the body up and activate the nervous system. Okay, and those guys are going to rotate, 4 minutes each drill. And then after we get our body, woken up, we're going to go through a walkthrough right in the gym. So offense, defense, special teams are each going to get 5 minutes. And you're going to see, right, we don't go out in the field until 6 o'clock. This upcoming season, we're actually going to be even later. We're going to be probably 6:05 now. And it's not because we're like one of those teams that like sees the other team out there at 5:30. We're like, we got them, right? They're going to be tired before the game. We're not one of those teams. We're just trying to, we don't need to be out there that long, right? There's only so much stuff that you can do to get you guys ready, feel rested for the game. And we're not trying to play the game before the game's played.
Yeah.
We want to be out there the least amount of time possible to get us ready to play. And typically, it's your quarterbacks who need the most time, so that's why they go out first. They're going to be followed by the specialist. Okay, and then we're going to do routes on there, right? The linemen they're going to head to the field at 6:25, right? You know, the big guys get tired, so they're not even out there that long. Okay, we're going to do our Panther lines, our warm-ups. We're going to do Indy defense, Indy offense. We're actually cutting team offense on there. I just think it's a waste of time. You know, you're not showing anything really, anything new. You're not going to show them, right? Obviously, before the game. And then we're going to go back to the locker room at 6:50. Give our guys 10 minutes. We don't want to be sitting in the locker room for that long. You know, allows us to cramp up for our guys, you know. So we're going to be in there for only 10 minutes. And then with 2 minutes left, we're going to head back onto the field. Okay. And then this is kind of something that, you know, me and Coach Karshner are still kind of moving in this direction of, you know, how are we getting sprint-based football, right? We're translating it into our practice, into our off-season program. You know, how are we translating that into the game, right? The actual game that's being played. And this is kind of, you know, some 3 topics that, you know, we're talking about, we're always, you know, thinking about. You know, most games in high school, right? High school football, it's a race to a running clock. Right? How fast can we get there? Right in Ohio, it's 30 points, and then how fast can we get our dudes out of harm's way? You know, especially if you're a smaller school and have a lot of two-way players. Once we get to that point, right, we're trying to get our guys out, get our young guys reps, and get to the next week. Right, we're trying to have as little two-way players as you can and find rest for them. For us, that's getting them off the field for special teams, right? We're doing maybe different personnels on offense or defense that we can maybe get a guy to rest for. Like our tight end last year, he couldn't come off the field on offense just because he couldn't come off the field on offense, but on defense he could, right? Because we had a lot of depth at defensive end. So he had to be on the field for offense, but on defense was where he would get his breaks. And we've had those conversations of, you know, what guys can't come off the field on certain situations and what guys can. And then we want to have their Madden color green, right? I mean, I think everyone's played Madden or NCAA. We're trying to make sure those guys never hit red, right? Those guys are always at green. If they start to get into that orange/yellow, right, that we're starting to be really careful with those guys. And then don't run your guys in the ground. Like week 3, our best player isn't going to carry it 20 times a game, right? And our best player was our running back. He's going to be capped at probably about 15 unless it's a must-win situation. But I would say, right, I think most high school teams have, you know, 2 or 3 running backs that you can get the ball and you can split it out so you're not wearing your guy out, right? I mean, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. We want him to be ready for the playoffs and when it's time to, you know, do or die, right? Playoff and key games. We don't want to burn him out, you know, week 3 in this game. Right. And then just feed the Panthers. That's kind of the way, you know, that we think with this stuff. And there's not, you know, a model that's perfect for everybody. There's not a cookbook that's perfect. You got to do what's best for your program. But that's just how we do it as a school with 600 kids, a lot of two-way players. That's kind of how it's worked for us.
I love it, Matt. You know, I know you take a lot of notes. Do you want to start off first here?
So, I mean, the coach is very thorough with it, obviously. He's got it down to a point, you know, exactly what they're doing to the minute, it seems like. Coach, Thursdays, that's my biggest question is, you know, it seems like you're on the field and doing some light workouts on Thursdays. That's been a day that I've always tried to taper everything way down as far as I could to where, you know, our main thing was to make sure everybody knows what special teams they're lined up on and, you know, let's have a little bounce around on the field, have a little fun, and then go eat a team meal. You know, that was my favorite part. So, you know, is Thursday something that you guys have toned down or kind of kept where it was, or, you know, how did that kind of modify from what you had before?
So Thursdays is a tricky day because I think you're trying to balance, right? Having your guys ready and then also having them rested. For us, I mean, what works for us is 15 plays of offense, 15 plays of defense, and that special team script we're trying to fly through as fast as we can. We did tone it down from our year 1 to year 2, just because I felt like throughout the season, more Thursdays, we started to look a little bit more tired. But we're really only on the field for maybe an hour, if that. I know it says we all go all the way to 5:30. We don't. We're probably done way
Okay.
earlier than that. Right? We're just trying, like I say, we're trying to get those guys off the field, right? Let those guys eat, and then let's get them home and get them rested for that game on Friday.
Yeah, Coach, I know one of the pieces. I love the home game stuff, right? You're in the gym, you start that movement-based stuff for the game, because I think that's something that's super important. How hard is that to do during an away game?
There is not an opponent in our league that's going to let us use their gym.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So, yeah. I know other sprint-based guys like Garrett Mueller, they let their other opponents in their league let them use their gym. That's just not how it is with us. Every AD, every other head coach is saying you're not going to do that. So we do it. Obviously, the times are a little bit different just based on travel. But we just do it on the field, right? Luckily, we haven't got to a situation where the weather was bad before the game. Obviously, that would take a little different. But like our week 2 game, we traveled 40 minutes to another school, and they told us that this is their senior night and we're not allowed on their field at all. So we went over to their grass practice field and just did what we normally do. So yeah, I don't know. I'm jealous of guys that have league opponents that let them use their gym, but that's just never been the case for us.
Yeah, I don't know. There's probably not a lot of places let you use their gym. It's nice if they do that. So most of the time we were relegated to whatever it was. Half the time, Matt, right? Dirt practice fields, all kinds of crap before games. So I love it.
I mean, when we did that at our second stop there at Oviedo, we did it on away games. We went in the gym, in the weight room, and we did it in the weight room there before we got on the bus. That was the last thing we did. And it was just the timing of everything, making sure that the kids are on time and you're not going to be late getting there.
Away games are obviously tricky, right, at the high school level. Like for our guys with the Titan GPSs, our first time doing it, we made a mistake of they gave them it, and then we realized our guys are running 70 miles per hour. Oh, it's because they turned them on and they're on the bus. So we don't give those guys their Titan GPSs until we get there. We were reaching some really good speeds there.
Fastest team in the country on the bus, baby.
So it's obviously, it's high school football. It's not always going to be perfect. So you got to adjust a little bit. But this season should be, we have our longest travel games this season for league opponents. So we'll have to see if it's a little different this year.
Yeah, we'll have to check back in and ask you about it at the end of the year. So, Coach, every time we have someone on, we ask them the same question. Doesn't have to be a football answer, but what is the most unique thing or interesting thing that your program does that either no one or not a lot of other people do?
Good question.
And no, you can't use Titan. I'm taking Titan away from you.
No, I don't know. I feel like our program does a really good job of getting the community involved. And I know every program says that, some aspect of that, but I do feel like we do a really good job of like we have a ladies' night, right? We have a community night with the people of the city that come out, and I think we're like, you come to our games, man, and our community does a really good job of coming out and showing. So we try to do everything we can. We're constantly volunteering for stuff. And I think a lot of high schools say that, but I think the way we try to connect with the community is different.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I really liked your idea earlier. Matt, I'd never thought about getting a food truck to show up after practice. I don't know if you ever have, but
That's
I'm
cool.
like, dang, that's kind of a really good idea.
We did a food truck, and then before that, we did an ice cream truck. So, and it's a lot easier than you think. You literally just call a number and they'll come out.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's probably something in a couple places we could have made happen, but it just never crossed my mind. We've had parents come in and like cook on the grill while we're practicing or give popsicles, but I never thought actually just grabbing a food truck and be like, hey, come here for an hour and we'll pay for X amount of food. It's not a terrible idea, because it's probably better than whatever, your quarterback's dad's cooking on the grill. God knows half the time they cook on the grill, it's all burnt. So no, I love it, Coach. So Coach, we appreciate you joining us tonight. As always, I always love the sprint-based football stuff. I just think that it's something that more people need to turn towards. That's my own opinion. Again, everyone doesn't have to do it, but if you ever ask me, I'm a huge proponent of it. But thanks for joining us tonight. I thought it was super insightful, and I really, really enjoyed it. We appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
Thanks, Coach.